Gotta lock in now.
Yes.
This is the important one. Oh God, this one. I'm so scared of this one. We're recording right now, so I'll probably leave this part in a little bit. But I'm so nervous about this right now. This is the UFC podcast. Oh God.
The
All right.
hardcore.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Hardcore and the Casual podcast. This is episode 1 of the UFC podcast. I'm your host, Justin, and I am here with my co-host, Elijah, the Casual. What's going on? How you doing?
Good. How are you, Justin?
I'm doing good. So, as I brought up on episode 0, this man is the reason why this podcast exists in the first place. It's because every time that I go to work, I have to deal with just these obscure things that he says.
All facts.
It's insane. Half of the stuff you say is absolutely insane.
Think about all the predictions that I did get right.
How many? What? You got like Leon Edwards beating Colby Covington? Come on, who would have expected Colby to just not do it? It was like last night with Aaron Blanchfield just not doing anything against Manon Fiorot. Like, it's this exact same situation. Colby just didn't do anything. And that's not my fault for picking Colby.
And it is, because you got to think about it. Colby's coming off of a 2-year layoff, and Leon Edwards, who just finished Kamaru Usman, beat Kamaru Usman by decision.
Okay.
He's coming in hot and ready. Leon Edwards is at the top of his game.
Okay.
And I don't even think, even if Kazmat or Hamzat was to come down, and if he could make weight, I don't even think he could make it.
I don't think he can. I don't think he'll ever be able to make 170 again. And now he's fighting Robert Whittaker at 185 in the main event of the Saudi Arabia card. That's going to be a fire card. I looked at that card. Whew, a lot of good fights.
And I think that both those guys will come in and they're going to put on a show. They're going to put on a good show.
I think that they will too. I got Chimaev in that one just because I don't think that Whittaker is going to be able to maintain his distance and control against Chimaev as well as he can against other people that are more striking based. I think that Chimaev gets on the inside and probably takes him down, but I don't know. I've seen Whittaker do some crazy things to Yoel Romero, so maybe I'm just like being a little too optimistic about this whole thing, but
I do understand where you're coming from. I think my biggest concern with Chimaev is more so his gas tank. We saw in his last fight with Kamaru Usman, he was able to take him down. He was able to, kind of impose his will. But later in that rounds, a lot of people, even the judges, feel like Kamaru Usman won that third round. My thing is, can Hamzat go 5 rounds? Can he put that pressure on someone like Robert Whittaker? And Robert Whittaker, he's coming off a loss, right?
yeah. No. He's coming off a win over Paulo Costa, and then before that he lost. No.
A win over Paulo Costa.
A win over Paulo Costa, and then he lost to DDP in the last fight before that. And then he had a win over like Marvin Vettori. He lost to Izzy. He goes back and forth with wins at this point now.
DDP's shaky, but the fight with Paulo Costa, Robert Whittaker did put on a show, and I feel like he will put on a show.
He did.
In the Saudi Arabia card.
He did definitely put on a show. That was a crazy fight to watch, Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. That was a nuts fight.
Man, that was fireworks.
It was. I had Robert Whittaker winning that, though. I knew he was going to win that. You said that he was washed. I remember clearly you saying that Robert Whittaker was washed before that fight, and then he goes out there, he gets one spinning heel kick from Paulo Costa, and he survives. And other than that, he pretty much just beat him up the whole fight.
Nonetheless, it was good. It was a good fight. I do think, kind of like Robert Whittaker, Paulo Costa's coming off a layoff versus losing off the last fight.
Yeah.
And for Robert Whittaker, it was more like a redemption. He's kind of like the Dustin Poirier of the middleweight division.
Okay.
He beats the good guys. He beats good guys. And, sometimes when it comes to the champions of the top guys who are very well-rounded, he comes and he falls short.
He does. But he has been middleweight champion of the world, though, Robert Whittaker.
Yes.
And Chimaev is just... I feel like the Gilbert Burns fight showed a lot of Chimaev's toughness, but I really don't think he has been tested yet. He fought Usman on a couple days' notice. Mm-hmm. And I have my own opinions on that.
In a new weight class.
But I think that Robert Whittaker is definitely going to be probably his toughest fight. But I do think that he grabs a hold of him and takes him down eventually. and probably just does what he does to everyone else. But Robert Whittaker does have a huge pedigree in wrestling in Australia. So, and he's shown that against people like against Yoel Romero. So I think he does have the shot to be able to stuff a few takedowns and really light Chimaev up on the feet if he can keep him on the feet.
It's funny you bring that up. I was actually watching a podcast with Henry Cejudo and Kamaru Usman, and they were talking about, or no, it was MMA Shea, and he was talking about Chimaev and kind of how different the wrestling is. He was comparing him to Bo Nickel with the folk style, and the wrestling that Chimaev has. And I think if you kind of compare Australian wrestling and his Sweden wrestling, it's iffy. I could give Robert Whittaker the edge, but in a mixed martial arts fight, I'm gonna give Chimaev the edge also because of his constant pressure and his constant blitz. Robert Whittaker, who also uses the blitz to his full capacity.
And Chimaev is sneakily good at counters. Like, he's actually a pretty good counter striker. I mean, the biggest one that I remember is the uppercut that he hit a Kareem with back before the UFC. But I mean, he's pretty good with counters, and Robert Whittaker likes his blitzes. So if he comes in there and Chimaev either changes levels, drops down, grabs the hips and takes him down, or just lays a big right hand on him, I think that he could put Robert Whittaker into a really bad spot. It just all depends on how Robert Whittaker wants to game plan for Chimaev. Is he going to try and keep his distance away from Chimaev so he doesn't get taken down? Or is he going to try and close that distance so that he could get up in his face and really put the pressure on him?
Nonetheless, the two questions the most is, so this fight was guaranteed a title contendership fight.
Yeah.
And so when we think about that, we think of Robert Whittaker, how he's already fought DDP and he's lost to DDP, and how he's fought Israel Adesanya on a multitude level of times. Even though Izzy's not the champion, we do know Izzy will be back in there for a title fight, and because that's what they're pushed for.
He's the biggest star in the company right now. They're always going to keep him in that spot, like really high up on the card.
Especially since he does still fight well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's not a slouch. I mean, he had one bad performance against Sean Strickland, but other than that, I mean, he's pretty much been flawless the rest of his career.
But my question to you is, Justin, is if Chimaev was to say, prove himself a little bit, he gets healthy, he fights after, and he beats Robert Whittaker, I think that Khamzat Chimaev will dominate DDP, and I think that he will have a harder time on Israel Adesanya because Israel Adesanya has that championship experience, the takedown defense, his resume, the counter strikes.
So you think it's going to be harder for Chimaev to beat Izzy than DDP? Is that, or what are you saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I can somewhat agree with that. I think DDP has the better takedown defense than Izzy, honestly, but I do feel like he'd kind of let his pride get in the way and kind of try and scrap with Chimaev rather than use his game plan and technically pick apart Chimaev like Izzy would try to do. But yeah, like I feel like either way, Chimaev probably gets the job done. I can't see a route where Izzy beats Chimaev, honestly. Unless he really catches him with something real early, I don't think there's a way that he avoids an eventual takedown. He needs to catch him with something on the way in.
You are right. And the only person I can use as a comparison is Alex Pereira, who is at 205, double champ.
I hate Alex Pereira.
Alex Pereira, listen, man, he's the guy. He's the guy.
He's not.
And do you think that if Alex Pereira was to come down to 185, do you think that DDP or Khamzat could beat him?
Yeah, I think Chimaev does. I think Chimaev easily dog walks him. And I think that DDP probably dog walks him too. Maybe not. I think maybe DDP gets caught with a left hook, but I think Chimaev dog walks him. I think he takes him down and doesn't let him back up.
Somewhat fair, but
Alex Pereira has only fought good matchups for him. He is
Jan Blachowicz.
Jan Blachowicz is a striker. He was never a wrestler. He literally trained in K1
but
kickboxing.
He stays at 205.
That doesn't mean anything. He's not a full-fledged wrestler. Alex Pereira has fought one wrestler on the UFC roster, and it was like his second fight, and he kneed the dude in the face. But that was a low-level guy. He has not fought anyone high-level in grappling
he was
yet
low
in the
level
UFC.
at the time, so he did have to
I understand
earn his way up. And you got to understand, Alex Pereira he's so good that when he's getting up to these fights, he's beating people. He's knocking out dudes left and right. He knocked out Strickland. Boom, he knocks out Strickland. And then now you have him and Izzy, one of the biggest stars in the UFC. You can call him a UFC superstar. One of the biggest stars in the UFC. They already have history. He's already beat him in the amateurs. He's already beat him in the kickboxing. You got to understand, when he came in there, he beat Izzy in fashion style.
Okay, let me say this. First off, Alex Pereira got one good win over Sean Strickland. He knocked out Sean Strickland cold. That was a good win. That was a good win against what we now know as really good competition. At the time, it wasn't like, oh, he's now Sean Strickland. He wasn't Sean Strickland at the time. But
earning his way up.
Yeah, and then he has a controversial decision against Izzy. Then he gets knocked out by Izzy. Or he has a controversial KO against Izzy when he like KO'd him, and but Izzy was still moving, and then he gets knocked out by Izzy. Then he has the controversial decision against Jan Blachowicz, where Jan Blachowicz won that goddamn fight.
He did
because
not win
he
that
won
fight.
the third round.
He didn't win that
he
fight.
Won the third. He won the first and the third rounds. I'm telling you.
He was getting pieced up round after round. His wrestling holding him down. It's not enough. It's not enough.
All right, let's look up what the scorecards were for the media.
Pull up the scorecards. I need real facts.
Yeah, just give me a second. I'm pulling them up. All right, from MMADecisions.com, we have Alex Pereira defeating Jan Blachowicz, and the media scorecards. Okay, well, they all scored it for Alex Pereira, and only 4 of them scored it for Jan Blachowicz, so you got that one.
Exact.
But honestly, no, you go back and watch that fight, because that last round was Jan Blachowicz's round. I mean, he landed the bigger shots in the round, and he got the takedown in the final minute of the fight.
Who has more significant strikes landed?
Who cares about that? That's never been a part of the judge. It's always been who takes more damage. This is why you still think that Sean Strickland beat DDP, is because he landed more strikes. He did not beat DDP. DDP won 3 out of those 5 rounds, the middle 3 rounds. Sean Strickland won round 1 and round 5. He did not win any of those middle 3.
Let me narrate you these rounds now.
No, because you don't know what you're talking about.
Watching it live, this is what I saw.
I judged it live too. I had it exactly how the judges saw it.
No. This is where you're wrong. First round, it opens up. We see Sean Strickland and DDP going at it. Tough first round. Got to give it to Strickland. When you talk about damage, the only damage was that cut from Sean Strickland. That one cut that was bleeding, right? It's bleeding.
Which opened up in the first round, so that means it should only be judged
look at
for
DDP's
the first round.
black eyes. His face was bruised up more. He took more damage. He looked more gassed at the end of the fight.
He did not.
You
got to
understand. You guys say, "Oh, he's mixing this up. He's mixing that up." Mixing it up doesn't mean that you're putting your pressure on the opponent. Sean Strickland was more comfortable. Had there been another 10 rounds, Sean Strickland would have been able to keep going and keep going. DDP needs to work on his gas tank, and he needs to work on his mixed martial arts skills.
All right.
Because even Dana White thought that he won that fight.
All right, so media scorecards say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people for DDP. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people for Strickland.
So how many people for DDP?
13.
How many people for Strickland?
10.
That's very close.
But still.
That's a 51-49.
The people that say that Strickland won that fight don't know how to score a UFC fight or don't know what the rules are, because the rules say that it's the person who lands the bigger damage and not the person that lands the more punches. It's never worked like that. It's always the person that does the more damage. And DDP easily did more damage on Sean Strickland.
As the MMA expert, I would like to say, when you're counting damage, you have to understand that just because a cut starts bleeding, it's like, okay, it's like it's bleeding, it's already been open. But when you look at DDP Sean Strickland, straight jabs down the middle, he's getting hit. 2 bruised eyes, face bruised up. And then when you look after the fight, why does DDP question himself on a post? He holds the belt and he was like, a lot of people think that I didn't win that fight.
Because a lot of people didn't think that because they're wrong and they don't know how to judge a score.
Almost
UFC
90%
fight.
of people thought he didn't win that fight.
No, I literally just showed you. Actually, more people thought that DDP won that fight than Sean Strickland, or at least the people that actually like watch every single episode and not
How
just
are
like
these
the
sources
casuals.
credited?
They're all right here. They all have their CBS Sports, SureDog.com, WrestlingObserver.com, MMAfighting.com, New York Post, Bellator, Post Wrestling. They're all for DDP. And then you get a bunch of people for Strickland, like Cage Side Press and Bloody Elbow, SureDog. Actually, one person from SureDog has it for Strickland, one from SureDog has it from DDP. Actually, 2 from SureDog have it for your Strickland, and one has it for DDP. But
at least they know the right way.
No, because it's not like that. It's who does the more damage, and the more damaging strikes came from DDP. He landed the bigger strikes. He landed the more powerful strikes, the more damaging strikes. Strickland just landed a bunch of jabs.
The more powerful strikes?
Yes, Strickland only landed a jab. And like I said to you, which one hurts more? If I just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or if I just give you one big one? Which one would hurt more, realistically?
Okay, but Strickland outscored him.
That doesn't matter. It's damage. The
Okay,
scorecards are judged by damage.
I feel like Sean Strickland put out equally, but if not more damage than DDP. And I feel like when we look at the scorecards, okay, he landed some bigger hits. But if I land more hits than him, if I hit him more than he hits me, if I've attacked him more than he's attacked me, if I damaged him more than he's damaged me, then I should automatically win that fight. And when does a champion win on a close fight?
Rob Font versus Cheeto Vera. Rob Font set a bantamweight striking record in the fight against Cheeto Vera, and he lost 50-44. How do you explain that? That Rob Font
MMA judges are so corrupt.
No. Rob Font set a bantamweight record and still lost the fight 50-45 or 50-44 because Cheeto Vera landed the more damaging strikes. He hit every time Cheeto landed on Rob Font, he hurt Rob Font. Rob Font was stumbling. Every time Rob Font landed like 300 punches on him and literally didn't knock him down once and lost the fight. And he still set a record. So how do you explain that? Because that's how you judge a fight.
Okay. You can use that fight for example. But when we look at the fight, DDP versus Strickland, the fight's so 50-50, it could pretty much almost go both ways. Did that fight where you watched Rob Font and Cheeto Vera, did you feel like it could have went both ways? Do you feel like it went one way, but the scorecard could have said another thing?
No, it was clear that Cheeto was doing the more damaging strikes than Rob Font, considering that Rob Font was a chicken legging around.
But do you feel like DDP 10-8 Strickland? Or do you feel
No,
like...
I think that it was a very even fight. I just think that DDP landed the bigger strikes in rounds 2, 3, and 4, which won him rounds 2, 3, and 4.
Very contradicting.
How is that contradicting? I literally just said he landed the more damaging strikes. Strickland might have landed more strikes in those rounds, but they didn't do that much damage. It's all about damage. It's all about who's the one that's being hurt more.
Let's count in this. DDP went for a takedown, took Strickland down. Strickland got right back up, threw some jabs, and his offense was right back out there. Not one time in that fight was there a time where you looked at Sean Strickland and you thought, wow, he's really out of this fight. You thought, no, Sean Strickland could pull this out at any moment of this fight. And even the people thought that. And when you look at that fight, you could be like, okay, Sean Strickland should have came out with more of a dog sort of aggression. Yes, it's 5 rounds. I feel like he did do enough. But when it comes to DDP, it's just like if you win the fight and after the fight, you feel some sort of way that sort of like how you feel about Aljamain, where he didn't kind of win the belt, but it's like Aljamain won the belt. And that's how I feel about the Sean Strickland and the DDP situation.
But it's completely different. DDP actually won that fight because he won rounds 2, 3, and 4 clearly because he did more damage. That's how the judging works. Like you could say that that's not how it should work, but that's how the judging does work.
Wow.
It's who threw the other person around the octagon more, and every time the DDP landed on Strickland, he threw him halfway across the octagon. Strickland was like literally getting launched backwards towards the cage every time he got hit. Strickland landed like 40 punches on DDP, and DDP still walked straight at him. There's a difference. There's a difference in the power. There's a difference in the strikes.
He caught him. Sometimes. You got to understand them jabs and the volumes was adding up. It may not add up like that on TV, but when them two guys are in that cage, it added up to DDP's gas tank. I think that Sean Strickland's punches, they may not have, kind of physically set him back, but they did because it kind of tired DDP out more,
I can understand that. So, all right, let's change gears here real quick. Let's talk about something that's a little less controversial. Let's talk about what happened at UFC Atlantic City last night. Woo. The Chris Weidman 1-2 eye poke. That was a great finish. I mean, it should have been a TKO. It would have set the record for the most amount of knockouts on a UFC event at 9, but it ended up getting overturned to a unanimous decision win for Chris instead. Great pop from the crowd. I loved seeing him in like his home turf. Like he's from New York, moved to North Carolina, but like he was welcomed by the Atlantic City crowd so openly, and really bad that he kept on eye poking the entire time. But I did understand his point where he was saying like, oh, you can't just drop to the ground every time you get eye poked. Like that'll cause exactly what happened to happen. I get that, but at the same time, close your fists. Close your fists.
Yeah.
So there was the 1-2 eye poke. I mean, it was an awesome fight going up to that though. They were throwing down. I had Bruno Silva winning the fight. It didn't happen. He had Chris Weidman winning the fight. It did happen. It's whatever. Yes. I don't think we bet on anything else at work.
No, we did.
I think we both said Aaron Blanchfield was going to win.
Aaron Blanchfield and
but she didn't.
Buckley.
Oh yeah, we both said Buckley was going to win. So yeah, then we were even with that. That's why I just remembered the Chris Weidman thing because we were opposites on that one. But yeah, Buckley got a huge victory. I mean, Vicente Luque didn't look good at all. I mean, like I'm not trying to disrespect him, but he just he pulled guard and then Buckley just like dominated him for like 30 seconds, just punching him. And Luque didn't look like he had anything in return. Didn't try to throw up a submission. Didn't try to get up. Didn't try to tuck, didn't try to roll, didn't try to do anything. Just got beat up on the ground, and then they stepped in, which I feel like there were a lot of odd decisions. There was the Chris Weidman one, there was the Joaquin Buckley one. I mean, it wasn't a weird decision. It was like that was fine, but like it was odd. It was odd. There was the Andre Petrosky fight in the second fight where he kind of got punched and then kind of walked across the cage and then crumpled over. There was a couple more right at the beginning of the main card that were kind of odd finishes. The refs were kind of all over the place last night. And then got down to the main event. Aaron Blanchfield, the home state girl, repping New Jersey in Atlantic City. And she goes out there and she just couldn't get it done. She didn't perform right. She didn't get any takedowns. She had one good guillotine in the first round that she wasn't able to secure because Manon decided to take Aaron Blanchfield down for some reason, and then just decided, you know what, screw that. We're just going to play the Leon Edwards game and just stay on the outside and just tip and tap at the person the entire fight and get a UD decision.
That's
fine.
Hater.
I am a Leon Edwards hater, and that's fine. I mean,
one of the best strikers in the game.
He's only got 2 knockouts, right?
Meaning
he's only got 2 knockouts. It was like his first fight in the UFC and the Kamaru Usman knockout. I mean, it's one of the greatest knockouts of all time, granted, but he's only had 2 knockouts in his entire UFC career. Everything else has been decisions, so he's kind of boring.
He got 2 knockouts. One of the fastest knockouts.
That is true.
And one of the greatest knockouts.
One of the latest too. One of the fastest and one of the latest.
Yes.
So I mean, granted, that's cool stats to have, but like you're kind of boring, dude. Like most of your fights are kind of just boring.
Leon Edwards he's on his way to be the GOAT soon.
Yeah, let's see about that. But that was basically what happened last night too. It was a technical kickboxing fight. Aaron Blanchfield tried to take it to the ground, couldn't get it done. Manone just picked her apart on the feet for 5 rounds. It wasn't the greatest performance ever by Aaron Blanchfield, and it wasn't the greatest performance ever by Manon Fiorot, but like they were punching each other. It was a fight. It was definitely a fight. It was definitely a main event. It was definitely 5 rounds, and Manon definitely won. There's nothing really much else to talk about from that card. I mean, it was a good card, and I enjoyed watching it. A lot of knockouts, 8 knockouts. If you want to go back and watch any of those were all cool.
Yes.
But other than that, I mean, there was no like huge moments that really stuck with me that I want to conversate about. It was kind of just the 1-2 eye poke that I thought was pretty cool. Bang bang. Oh, I won! It was kind of funny. So I think we'll change gears real quick, and we'll look forward to next week. So next week we're gonna do the UFC 300 predictions for that card. We're gonna run down the whole card, do predictions for that. That'll be next week's video. This week we're gonna do just the main event, I think, for Curtis versus Allen. I don't want to just swamp everyone with just weekly prediction videos of every single fighter. I kind of want to... Next week for UFC 300, we're probably going to do the entire card just because there's no bad fights on the entire card.
Yeah.
But usually...
Top to bottom.
usually we'll just pick and choose fights that we want to actually bet on and talk about it.
Always the main event.
Always the main event. Probably always the co-main event. Maybe the feature bout. Maybe like an early prelim fight just randomly one of us care about. It'll all depend, but honestly, UFC 300 is probably going to be the only one that we do the entire card for. Or next week is just really the only one that we want to really talk about is Allen versus Curtis.
Yeah.
Allen versus Curtis 2, which last time it was a first round knockout by Chris Curtis on Brendan Allen.
Wow.
Brendan Allen has looked real good ever since then. I mean, he has a loss against Chris Curtis, and he has a loss against Sean Strickland. Other than that, he's been dominant in all of his fights. He just came off a big win off of Paul Craig, which was pretty big.
Yes.
And now he's getting his rematch against Chris Curtis. How do you think this one's going down? Chris Curtis has been on a roll lately too. I mean, he's kind of had his ups and downs recently, but he has been on a steady, like, you know, it's up and down, but it's climbing. It's like Bitcoin right now. It's like Bitcoin goes up and down every day, but it's going up.
I think Chris Curtis, what he's gonna do is I think he's gonna have a slow start. I think the later round or the second round will probably be, you know, where he'll pick up, but I have him taking this fight. I'm not too sure yet. I need to do a little more research. I need to just kind of look into, you know, where are these guys at in their career right now? Like, what is at stake? What is on the line? Those type of pressures.
A top 10 ranking
on the fight.
A top 10 ranking is on the line. And right now,
and to settle a score.
Yeah, Allen is doing the best work of his career, and I think he's going to be highly motivated to get this win back against Chris Curtis. My only reservation is you got caught last time. You got to show me that you're not going to get caught again.
Yeah.
I want to say Brandon Allen's so bad. I really like him. I really think that he could be a star. I really think that he could be top of the card material.
Of course.
I mean, just losing to Strickland and Curtis is really good when you've got 10 more wins in the UFC and like 8 of those are finishes. That's a crazy record, and Brendan Allen is highly slept on in the middleweight division. But I feel like Chris Curtis, it's going to be 5 rounds. He's going to catch him with something eventually, and I think Brendan Allen's is probably going to go for takedowns and try to wear him up against the cage. I don't necessarily think that he's going to get Curtis down, though, which is going to be the problem. Yeah. And if he can't get Curtis down, then it's going to be a long night for Brendan Allen on the feet. I got Curtis knockout probably second or late in the second round. That's probably what I'm going for.
Behind the expert.
But if they make it past like the second round and then go into the third, I have a feeling that Brendan Allen's probably going to take home the UD. But that's
just
only
out of luck, right?
Yeah, that's only if he makes it past. But my official prediction is going to be Chris Curtis by knockout in the second round.
Yeah.
That's probably what I'll go for. I don't have a UFC belt yet. I really want to get one for the prediction videos. Like, if any of you watch the WWE podcast, that probably just went up before this one because I just recorded it before this one. I'm probably going to have that belt right there before the WWE predictions, and I want to get my own UFC belt so that we can have that for these predictions. Because I want to keep it different. I know that a lot of UFC fans aren't necessarily the biggest fans of WWE, and they kind of there's a little bit of that tension between the fan bases. I want to
fake and real and
I want to grow these fan bases into each other because now they're one company. This is TKO now. We are all together in this ride now. We are TKO.
You might see some from here go here and some from there go there.
Exactly. We've seen Michael Chandler show up on Monday Night Raw a couple of weeks ago and call out Conor McGregor. We might see the same thing happen at WrestleMania next weekend because WrestleMania is next weekend. If any of you UFC fans don't know about that, join us for the prediction video that just went up on the channel. Join us for the review video for next week too. And then also join us for the review or for the prediction video for UFC 300 that's going to go up next week as well. Because that's going to be exciting. Just looking at that UFC 300 card gets me fired up. Every single card is fire. Every single card, every single fight on that card could have main evented a fight night or a pay-per-view. Every single one of them.
Oh, yeah.
There's not a single, like, what's the worst one on the card? It's probably Bo Nickel versus Cody Brundage on the first fight of the main card. And even that, it's Bo Nickel, so I'm highly invested in that, even though it's not the best fight.
Aren't you excited for Aljamain Sterling and Calvin Kattar?
Oh, I am. I am very excited to see Calvin Kattar get a big win over Aljamain Sterling by knocking him out cold.
Aljamain hater. I think Aljamain's great. I think Aljamain will
Aljamain hater is an understatement because Aljamain Sterling is the worst champion in the UFC history.
Most wins at bantamweight.
I don't care. He's had one definitive win since 2021, and it's against Corey Sandhagen. And since then,
you can't beat the stats, man.
No,
look how he finished TJ Dillashaw.
Dude, TJ Dillashaw, you mean one arm dude? The dude that had the dislocated shoulder coming into the fight?
Look how he beat Henry Cejudo.
You mean the split decision king, Aljamain Sterling, the dude that just split decision Piotr Jan and split decision Henry Cejudo? Those aren't definitive dominant wins.
He beat Piotr Jan twice, and then
he beat Piotr Jan the first time by DQ because Piotr Jan got DQ'd. That is not a clean win, especially when Piotr Jan was dominating that fight beforehand.
Oh no! And then when he fights Sean O'Malley, right?
And then he gets knocked out. You mean that fight that he got knocked out
in the second round, he hits him, blah blah blah. He drops, he falls. It was an early stoppage. Aljamain could have still continued fighting. I think that they rushed Aljamain into that fight right after he just fought Henry. And I think Sean O'Malley is ducking Merab. He's ducking Merab.
So you think that O'Malley can catch Aljamain Sterling with that punch and knock him out, but you don't think that Calvin Kattar can catch him with that same punch and knock him out?
Absolutely not.
Calvin Kattar guaranteed has more power behind his fist than
Aljamain Sterling has a great wrestling background. He has championship experience, something that Calvin Kattar doesn't. And you just got to put those certain factors in. Is that he's at a heavier weight class, so now he carries a lot more weight, so now he's even bigger in the cage, and this might be his redemption to win the title back. And if he could win at 45, I could see him coming down and getting his belt at 135.
That all depends on Merab. He's not going to fight Merab if Merab beats Sugar Sean.
Granted, Merab wins.
I think he does. I think he probably does, even though I really want to see Sugar Sean versus Corey Sandhagen for the belt. That would be awesome, but
I'm going to say this right now. It feels like Merab will beat Sean O'Malley, and that's because of, his wrestling, his cardio, his pace. I just have a feeling that if the fight goes on longer than 3 rounds, and depending on how the second round looks, if Sean O'Malley is able to land early and find his spots early, I can see Sean O'Malley just catching him on multiple occasions and taking Merab kind of out of his place. I don't see him dominating Merab, but I see him taking out of his place.
O'Malley needs a lot of kicks up the middle, knees up the middle, uppercuts up the middle, anything up the middle. Just as soon as Merab is about to just step forward, you need to start throwing stuff right up the middle.
Absolutely.
Because if he gets his hands on you, you're going to have a long night. The only person to stop him is Jose Aldo from taking him down and Merab still managed to win that fight. And now we're seeing Jose Aldo come back at Rio. This coming, or not Rio, I think it's in Rio. It's definitely in Brazil. He's going to be the co-main event of probably the worst pay-per-view I've seen since I started watching UFC. But that's okay. I mean, Pantoja versus Urig. It's a fine main event. I like Urig. I like Pantoja. They're not the biggest stars, but it's whatever. Jose Aldo's returning against Jonathan Martinez. That's a fine fight. That's whatever. Other than that, I mean, there's like Anthony Smith versus Viktor Petrosky. A couple other good fights, but it's
Anthony
really
Smith. Now you're attacking my family.
Yeah. You're attacking my family. Oh, what am I doing?
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, it'll be a fine pay-per-view. I don't even know if I'm gonna buy it. I'll probably do that thing that Dana White doesn't like people doing, that I'm not gonna say out loud, because I'm not. Don't come after me, Dana. I'm just a kid.
Dana,
please. I just wanna not have to pay for that pay-per-view, please.
Oh, I'm gonna pay for it.
Are you paying for me to watch it too? You coming here to pay for it? You want to spend $80 on Pantoja versus Urig?
I don't, but we'll find a way how to.
All right, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out next time on the Hardcore and the Casual podcast. Thank you guys for joining us on the Hardcore and the Casual podcast, episode 1 of the UFC podcast. Thank you very much, Elijah, for coming and joining me on this podcast. This is going to be a fun journey. This was a little more tame than I thought it was going to be, and I am very glad that it was, because we've got a lot of arguments coming down the pipeline. All I'm going to mention is Alexander Volkanovski, and that's already going to start something. We'll get to all of it down the line.
Honestly, if Alexander
Volkanovski, here we go.
If Alexander Volkanovski had a full training camp,
okay,
he would have beat Islam.
Thank you guys so much for watching. This was the Hardcore and the Pod. Asshole you are. Threw my entire train of thought off. I'm the expert. I'm the hardcore. This is the Hardcore and the Casual. I'm Justin. That's Elijah. Thank you guys so much for joining. You got anything else to say before I kick you off?
The expert is out.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, right here. Expert out.